The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of the Horizon's Gate. Dr. Minji pressed her hand against the cool glass, watching New Sejong rotate slowly below. The planet's green continents and blue oceans reminded her of Earth, though everything here was just a little bit different. The trees grew taller, the oceans were deeper, and 40,000 humans called it home. She had been studying the radio signals for 3 days now. They came from beyond the system's edge, growing stronger each hour. Someone was coming. Something was coming. The patterns were artificial, definitely created by intelligent beings. This was it. This was first contact. Everything she had trained for her entire life was about to happen. Captain Daiho stood beside her, his arms crossed over his chest. His military uniform was crisp and clean, but his eyes were tired. He had been awake for nearly 30 hours, monitoring the same signals. Unlike Minji, he was not excited. He was worried. "The signal just changed," he said quietly. "They are broadcasting on all frequencies now. They want us to know they are here." Minji nodded. Her heart was beating fast. "Have you told Administrator Bora?" "She knows. The whole colony knows by now." Daiho turned away from the window. "I need to get back to the Taeguk. My crew is running final checks on all systems." "You think we will need weapons?" Minji asked. The question felt wrong in her mouth. This was supposed to be a peaceful moment, a historic moment. Daiho did not answer right away. He walked toward the door, then stopped. "Doctor, in my 15 years in the Defense Force, I learned one thing. Hope for peace, but prepare for war. Always." He left. Minji was alone with the stars. 6 hours later, the alien ships appeared. They did not come slowly or carefully. They ripped out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge like bullets. 47 vessels moving in perfect formation. Their hulls were dark and covered in sharp angles. They looked like insects, like hornets made of metal and violence. Minji sat in the communication center aboard Horizon's Gate. Her hands shook as she prepared the first contact message. It was simple and mathematical, designed to show intelligence and peaceful intent. She had practiced this message 1,000 times. She transmitted it on every frequency, in every format humanity had developed. The alien fleet did not slow down. They did not respond. They just kept coming, accelerating toward New Sejong. "Lieutenant." Hyun watched them approach from his station aboard the Taeguk. He was young, only 24, and this was his first real assignment after the academy. The weapons console in front of him showed targeting solutions for all 47 ships. The numbers were not good. The Taeguk was one ship, one small frigate. Those were warships out there. Big ones. "Captain, they are not responding to hails," the communication officer reported. Her voice was steady, but Hyun could hear the fear underneath. Captain Daiho sat in his command chair, absolutely still. He had seen combat before, during the colony wars 40 years ago. He recognized predators when he saw them. "All hands, battle stations, charge all weapons, raise shields to maximum." "Sir, should we not wait?" Hyun asked. "Maybe they just need time to translate our message?" Daiho looked at his young weapons officer. "Lieutenant, when someone approaches your home at attack speed and ignores all communication, they have already answered. They just have not told you yet." The alien fleet crossed into New Sejong's orbital space. And then they spoke. The message was not mathematical. It was not peaceful. It came in broken human language, clearly translated by a computer that had studied human transmissions. "Human creatures, you exist on world we claim. You have 1-day cycle to surrender. You will serve Vrelic's empire. You will work, you will obey, or you will end. This is only message." Administrator Bora sat in her office in New Sejong's capital city, listening to those words repeat. She was 50 years old and had spent the last decade building this colony. 40,000 people, farms and schools and hospitals, children playing in parks, artists creating, scientists discovering, all of it about to be taken by creatures who saw them as nothing more than tools. She opened her communication link to the Teguk. Captain Deho, this is Bora. What are our options? Deho's face appeared on her screen. He looked grim. We evacuate as many as we can. I have already sent emergency signals to Earth, but they are 3 days away at best. We need to buy time. And if we surrender? Bora asked, though she already knew the answer. Then our children grow up as slaves, if they let them grow up at all. Deho leaned forward. Administrator, I will protect this colony with everything I have, but you need to start evacuations now. Get people to the underground shelters. Get ships loaded. We do not have much time. Bora closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she was no longer a colonial administrator. She was a protector. Understood, Captain. We will be ready. The Vrelics did not wait the full day. They attacked early like predators testing prey. 3 ships broke from the formation and accelerated toward the civilian transport ships that were trying to evacuate people from the planet's surface. Captain, they are targeting the transports, Hyun shouted. His fingers flew across the weapons console, trying to get targeting locks, trying to do something, anything. Intercept course, maximum burn, Deho ordered. All weapons free. Protect those transports. The Teguk surged forward, its engines screaming. The small frigate put itself between the massive Vrelics warships and the helpless transports. Hyun fired everything they had. Missiles and plasma bolts and laser batteries all at once. Some hit, some missed. It did not matter. The Vrelic ships had shields like nothing humanity had seen before. The weapons that should have torn through armor just scattered across energy barriers. And then the Vrelics fired back. Their plasma cannons were designed to melt through hulls, to cook crews alive inside their ships. 2 transport ships exploded before they could finish loading passengers. 3,000 people died in those explosions. Fathers and mothers and children. Dr. Minji watched it happen from Horizon's gate, her first contact message still repeating uselessly into the void. She fell to her knees and cried. The Teguk shook violently as Vrelic's weapons hammered its shields. Hyun watched the shield indicator drop from 100% to 60% in seconds. Captain, we cannot hold them. We do not need to hold them, Deho said calmly. We just need to slow them down. All power to forward shields. Ram the lead ship if we have to. The crew stared at their captain. He was serious, completely serious. Deho met their eyes one by one. We are soldiers. They came for our people. We make them pay for every second, for every life. Understood? Yes, sir, they answered together. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Teguk fought like a wounded animal, striking and retreating, leading the Vrelics away from the colony ships. But there were too many enemies. The Vrelics fleet spread out and began systematic bombardment of New Sejong's cities. Orbital strikes that turned buildings into glass. Plasma bursts that started firestorms. 15,000 more died that day. Captain Deho sat in his damaged command chair as sparks flew from broken consoles around him. Half his crew was dead. The Teguk was running on emergency power. They had maybe one more fight left in them. Maybe. He recorded one final message and sent it by faster-than-light transmission toward Earth. His hands were steady as he spoke. This is Captain Deho of the defense frigate Teguk. The Vrelics Empire has attacked New Sejong colony without provocation or mercy. They murdered 3,000 civilians in the opening attack. They have killed 18,000 more in bombardment. They drew first blood. They killed our children. Authorization code Crimson. We need the arsenal. We need it now. If you are listening to this, we might already be dead. But for the love of humanity, make them pay. Make them remember what happens when you attack humans. He sent the message, and then he turned his battered ship around for one more fight. Because that is what humans do. They fight. Even when the odds are impossible, even when death is certain, they fight for every second, for every life, for every inch of ground. The Vrelics had made their first mistake. They thought humans were prey. They were about to learn the truth. Prey runs. Humans fight back. The message reached Earth exactly 3 days after Captain Deho sent it. It arrived at Mars Orbital Defense Command at 0347 hours. flagged with the highest priority code in the human military system. Authorization code Crimson. The code that meant genocide. The code that meant someone was trying to wipe out humans. Admiral Soo-hyun was asleep when the alarm woke her. She had been dreaming about the colony wars, about the battles she fought when she was young. Now she was 60 years old and commander of all human military forces. She dressed quickly and reached the command center in 4 minutes. "Show me," she said simply. They played Captain Daeho's message. Every officer in the room listened in silence. When it finished, nobody spoke. They just stared at the tactical display showing New Sejong's position, 3 days away at faster-than-light speed. 3 days too far to save those people, too far to stop the dying. "How many ships do we have that can reach them?" Soo-hyun asked. "The entire 7th Fleet is ready, Admiral. 30 warships. We can launch in 6 hours." The tactical officer highlighted the fleet positions on the display. "But even at maximum FTL speed, it will take 3 days to arrive. By then many more will be dead," Soo-hyun finished. "I know, launch the fleet anyway. And send a message to Prometheus Deep. Tell Chief Engineer Kwan I want the Retribution ready to fly. Tell him I do not care if it is still experimental. Tell him we are going to show the galaxy what happens when you murder human children." Across the solar system, humanity mobilized for war. Ships that had been on patrol rushed toward Earth. Crews were pulled from leave. Weapons were loaded. And in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Neptune's orbit, a secret military station began powering up systems that had never been tested in real combat. Prometheus Deep was the darkest secret humanity kept from the galaxy. It looked like a simple research station from the outside, just another asteroid base mining ice and minerals. But inside its rock shell, humanity had built weapons, terrible weapons. Weapons designed by people who remembered the colony wars and promised themselves that humans would never be helpless again. Chief Engineer Kwan stood in the main hangar, looking up at the Retribution. The ship was enormous, twice the size of a normal battle cruiser. But what made it special was not its size. It was the weapons. Running along its spine were 12 railgun batteries, each one capable of accelerating a slug of tungsten-uranium alloy to 15% of light speed. Kwan was 73 years old. He had spent 40 years designing these weapons after watching his family die in the colony wars. Back then, humans had normal weapons. Missiles and lasers and plasma guns. They were not enough. So Kwan asked himself a simple question. What is the fastest way to kill something in space? The answer was simple physics. Mass times velocity equals force. Get something heavy moving fast enough and nothing can stop it. No shield, no armor, nothing. The railguns turned simple metal slugs into planet killers. Each shot carried the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon, but without the radiation or the political problems. "Is she ready?" Admiral Soo-hyun asked, walking up behind Kwan. She had taken a shuttle from Mars to Prometheus Deep, needing to see the weapon herself. Kwan nodded slowly. "The Retribution is ready. But Admiral, you need to understand what you are about to unleash. These railguns are not precision weapons. When they hit something, that thing disappears. Completely. The kinetic energy is so high that matter just vaporizes. There is no stun setting, no warning shots, just total destruction." "Good," Soo-hyun said coldly. They wanted to see what humans do when pushed. "Let us show them." But not everyone agreed. Ambassador Ji-won arrived at Mars Command 8 hours later, exhausted from emergency travel. She had spent 20 years working on peaceful relations with alien species. She had dedicated her life to making sure humanity was seen as civilized, as reasonable, as good neighbors in the galaxy. "Admiral, you cannot do this," Ji-won said, bursting into the command center. "If we deploy superweapons against the Vrelics, every other species will see us as dangerous, as monsters. We will lose decades of diplomatic progress." Soo-hyun turned to face the ambassador. Her expression was tired but firm. "Ambassador, with respect, they killed 18,000 civilians. They targeted evacuation ships. They are bombing cities as we speak. What exactly do you suggest? Should we ask them nicely to stop?" "I suggest proportional response," Ji-won argued. "Send the fleet. Fight them off. But do not use weapons that could destroy planets. Once you cross that line, you can never go back." "They crossed the line when they murdered our children," Soo-hyun said. "We did not start this war, Ambassador. But we will end it. And when we do, every species in the galaxy will know one simple fact. You can trade with humans. You can be friends with humans. But if you attack humans, if you kill our families, then we will show you what real predators look like. The argument continued for hours. But in the end, the decision was already made. The government had voted. The military had its orders. The 7th Fleet would deploy with the Retribution as its flagship. And they would carry enough firepower to crack a moon. Corporal Nari checked her combat armor for the 5th time. She was a Marine, part of the boarding teams that would secure enemy ships if any survived the initial attack. She had fought in 3 minor conflicts over her 8-year career. She had seen combat, but this felt different. This felt bigger. You nervous? Her squad mate asked, sealing his own armor. Terrified, Nari admitted. We are going up against an empire that has conquered 12 other species. And we are going in with experimental weapons and a lot of anger. Good, the squad mate said. Anger keeps you sharp. Just remember your training. And remember what they did to those colonists. Children, Nari, they killed children. Nari nodded. She had seen the casualty reports. Whole families erased. Schools destroyed while kids were still inside. The Vrelics did not care about mercy or rules or civilization. They only understood strength. So humanity would show them strength. The kind of strength that turns warships into debris fields. The kind of strength that makes empires crumble. The 7th Fleet launched from Mars orbit 30 hours after receiving Captain Deho's message. 30 warships in perfect formation, with the Retribution at the center. Each ship carried crews who had volunteered for what might be a suicide mission. Each crew member had watched the footage from New Sejong. Each one had made the same decision. This ends. Now. Captain Yunji commanded the Retribution from her position on the bridge. She was 45 years old and had never lost a battle. She did not plan to start now. Her crew was the best in the fleet, hand-picked for this mission. They had trained on the Railgun systems for months, running simulations, learning the timing, understanding the raw power they controlled. All ships, this is Retribution Actual, Yunji transmitted to the fleet. We jump to FTL in 5 minutes. Our destination is New Sejong. Our mission is simple. Save the colony. Destroy the enemy. Show them what humans are capable of when we are united and angry. This is not revenge. This is justice. This is protection. This is what we were built for. Retribution Actual out. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed, tearing a hole in normal space and disappearing toward New Sejong. The journey would take 3 days. 3 days of waiting. 3 days of knowing that people were dying while they traveled. 3 days of preparing for what would come next. Back at New Sejong, the situation grew worse. The Vrelics had landed ground forces and were systematically destroying any resistance. Captain Deho and the Taeguk were still fighting, but barely. His ship was held together with emergency repairs and desperate hope. His crew was down to 30% strength. But they kept fighting. They kept buying time. Because help was coming. It had to be coming. Dr. Minji had stopped crying. She had moved past grief into something colder. She spent her time monitoring Vrelics' communications, learning their language, understanding their tactics. They were talking about humans like they were insects, like humanity was just another weak species to be crushed and enslaved. They had conquered 12 other species this way. 12 civilizations reduced to servants and slaves. But Minji found something interesting in the Vrelics' communications. They were not scanning properly. They were not studying human technology. They were so confident in their victory that they were not even being careful. They thought this was already over. They thought humanity would break like all the others. She recorded everything and transmitted it to any human ship that might receive it. Tactical data, language patterns, ship movements, everything that might help when the fleet arrived. If the fleet arrived, she had to believe they were coming. She had to believe that Earth had not abandoned them. Administrator Bora had moved the colonial government underground. 15,000 survivors huddled in shelters designed to protect against storms, not orbital bombardment. Food was running low. Power was failing. Medical supplies were gone. People were dying from wounds that should have been easy to treat. And above them, the Vrelic ships circled like vultures, occasionally firing at anything that moved on the surface. How much longer? Someone asked Bora in the crowded shelter. Help is coming, Bora said. She had to believe it. Captain Deho sent the signal. Earth is coming. We just have to survive a little longer. The 7th Fleet arrived at the edge of the New Sejong system exactly 3 days after leaving Earth. 30 human warships tore out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Their weapons already charging, their shields already up. They arrived ready for war. Captain Yunji stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display light up with contacts. 47 Vrelix ships. No wait, only 44 now. 3 had been destroyed or damaged badly enough to leave the system. Good. That meant someone down there was still fighting. That meant they were not too late. Not completely. All ships combat formation Delta, Yunji ordered. Shields to maximum. Charge all weapons, and someone get me a damage report on the Teguk.
I want to know if Captain Daeho is still alive. Lieutenant Hyun almost cried when he saw the human fleet appear on his sensors.
The Teguk was a wreck. Systems were failing. Hull breaches on 6 decks. Life support working at 30% capacity. But they were still flying, still fighting, and now they were not alone. Captain, the fleet is here, Hyun reported, his voice cracking with emotion. 30 ships, including something huge. Something I have never seen before. Captain Daeho pulled himself out of his command chair. He had a broken arm and burns on his face, but he was smiling. Smiling for the first time in 3 days. That is the cavalry, Lieutenant. That is Earth saying we do not abandon our people. Open a channel to the flagship. This is Captain Daeho of the Teguk to incoming fleet. It is very good to see you. The Vrelix have 44 warships still combat capable. They have been bombarding the colony. 18,000 dead. Maybe more. We could not stop them all. But we made them work for every kill. Captain Yunji's face appeared on Daeho's broken screen. She looked at the damaged captain with respect. Captain Daeho, this is Captain Yunji of the Retribution. You did good. You kept them busy. You saved lives. Now dock with the medical frigate and let us handle the rest. You earned it. Daeho shook his head. With respect, Captain, the Teguk still has weapons. We are not done fighting, Yunji smiled. I like you, Captain. Fine, take position in the rear guard. Provide targeting data, but stay out of the main battle. We do not need heroes dying today. Understood? Understood, Daeho agreed. He was too tired to argue more. And truthfully, his ship would probably fall apart if they tried any serious combat maneuvers. The Vrelix noticed the human fleet immediately. Their sensors had been tracking the system edge, waiting for exactly this. Reinforcements. But only 30 ships? The Vrelix still had numerical superiority. This would be another easy victory. Warmaster Krixtel sat in his command throne aboard the Vrelix flagship. He was ancient by Vrelix standards, nearly 40 cycles old. He had personally commanded the conquests of 8 species. He had killed millions. He had watched worlds burn. This was just another day. Another weak species learning their place. Human fleet detected. His tactical officer clicked in the Vrelix language. 30 warships. Small compared to our force. Should we destroy them? Yes, Krixtel said simply. Use standard swarm tactics. Overwhelm them. Kill them quickly. Then finish the colony. I am tired of this system. The Vrelix fleet turned as one and accelerated toward the human ships. They moved in their signature formation, a swarming pattern designed to surround and overwhelm enemies with superior numbers. It had worked against 12 other species. It would work again. On the surface of New Sejong, Sergeant Junho watched the sky through the ruins of what used to be a school. He was a Marine, part of the ground defense force. For 3 days, he and his teams had fought Vrelix landing parties, buying time for civilians to evacuate. Half his people were dead. The rest were exhausted and running out of ammunition. Sarge, are those our ships up there? A young Marine asked, pointing at the lights moving across the sky. That is the fleet, Junho confirmed. That means the Vrelix are about to learn a lesson. Get everyone to cover. When capital ships fight in orbit, debris falls. Lots of debris. In the underground shelter, Administrator Bora received a transmission from the Retribution. A woman's voice, calm and professional. Administrator Bora, this is Captain Yunji of Earth Defense Forces. We are engaging the enemy fleet now. Stay in your shelters. This might get loud. But we are here. You are not alone anymore, Bora started crying. She could not help it. For 3 days she had held everything together, been strong for her people, pretended she knew they would be saved. And now it was real. Help had come. Earth had not forgotten them. The 2 fleets rushed toward each other at combat speed. The Vrelix ships spread out, trying to surround the human formation. They had done this 1,000 times. Surround, overwhelm, destroy. Simple tactics for simple battles. But Admiral Suyan was not simple. She watched from her command ship, coordinating the entire fleet from Mars. 3-second delay for communications, but she had planned for that. She had trained her captains to think independently. They knew the plan. All ships execute Pattern Wolf, Suhyun ordered. Show them what happens when prey fights back. The human fleet did not try to avoid being surrounded. Instead, they formed a tight sphere, all ships facing outward, all weapons pointing at the incoming enemy. And then they waited. Let the Vreliks come to them. Let them get close. Let them think they were winning. War Master Krikstal watched the humans form their defensive sphere and laughed. Fools. They had trapped themselves. Now his ships could fire from all directions at once. The humans would be destroyed in minutes. All ships open fire when in range. Tear them apart. The Vreliks fleet closed to 200,000 kilometers and prepared to fire. Their plasma cannons heated up, their missile tubes loaded. This was the moment of victory. This was when the enemy realized they had lost. And then Captain Yunji gave the order that changed everything. All railgun batteries. Full power. Fire. The Retribution shuddered as its main railgun fired. 12 barrels released 12 slugs of tungsten uranium alloy. Each one accelerated to 15% of light speed by magnetic coils running the length of the ship. The projectiles were simple. Just metal. No explosives. No fancy technology. Just mass and velocity and physics. The first slug crossed 200,000 kilometers in 3.7 seconds. It hit the Vreliks flagship directly in the center. The kinetic energy release was equivalent to a small nuclear bomb, but instead of explosion and radiation, there was just impact. Pure, terrible impact. The flagship did not explode. It did not burn. It simply ceased to exist. The slug punched through the shields like they were not there. Punched through the armor like it was paper. Punched through the entire ship and out the other side. The metal turned to plasma from the heat of impact. The ship vaporized. 5,000 Vreliks warriors died so fast they did not even know they were dead. The shockwave from the impact crippled 7 nearby Vreliks ships. Their systems overloaded. Their shields collapsed. They tumbled through space, helpless and broken. War Master Krikstal had just enough time to see his flagship disappear before he died. His last thought was confusion. What weapon was that? What did that? How? Lieutenant Hyun watched from the Taeguk and whispered, "Oh no. They should not have done that." 5 other human ships opened fire with their railgun batteries, not as powerful as the Retribution but still devastating. More slugs crossed space at impossible speeds. More Vreliks ships vanished in clouds of plasma and debris. No explosions. No fire in space. Just matter ripping apart at the atomic level from sheer kinetic energy. In 30 seconds, 12 Vreliks ships were destroyed. In 1 minute, 19 were gone. The Vreliks fleet tried to scatter, tried to retreat, tried to do anything, but they were designed for close combat with plasma weapons. They had thick armor and strong shields, but none of that mattered against projectiles moving at 15% of light speed. The remaining Vreliks ships finally returned fire. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked toward the human fleet. Some hit, some were destroyed by point defense systems. The human shields flared and held. The human armor absorbed impacts. Ships took damage, but they kept fighting. Captain Yunji watched the battle display with cold satisfaction. Railguns are recharging. 30 seconds. All ships, conventional weapons free. Pour everything into them. The human fleet opened up with lasers and missiles and plasma guns. The Vreliks had expected this kind of fight. This they could handle. Their ships began fighting back properly, using their superior numbers to focus fire on individual human vessels. The destroyer Incheon took heavy damage, its aft section torn apart by concentrated plasma fire. But even as it died, it kept shooting, kept fighting, kept making the enemy pay for every meter of space. Dr. Minji monitored the battle from Horizon's Gate, recording everything. She watched the railguns fire again, watched 8 more Vreliks ships disappear. The aliens were screaming on their communication channels now. Not in anger, in fear, in terror. They were experiencing something they had never felt before. They were the ones being hunted. What are those weapons? A Vreliks commander screamed over the open channel. What devil fire is this? Another Vreliks voice answered, panicked and broken. Retreat! All ships retreat. We cannot fight this. They are killing us. But Admiral Suhyun heard those transmissions too. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. The battle was over in 43 minutes. 44 Relics warships had entered the fight. 43 were now debris fields spreading through the new Sejong system. Only one remained, crippled and helpless, surrounded by human vessels. Inside that ship, 900 Relics warriors waited for death. They had watched their entire fleet get erased. They had watched weapons that made no sense destroy everything they knew about space combat. Corporal Nari stood in the airlock of her boarding craft, checking her rifle one more time. Behind her, 20 Marines did the same. They wore heavy combat armor and carried enough firepower to take down a building. But everyone was nervous. They were about to enter an alien warship full of warriors who had nothing left to lose. "Remember," Nari said to her team, "we need prisoners. We need information. So we use stun rounds first. But if they attack, if they try to fight, then we switch to lethal and we do not hesitate. These things killed 18,000 civilians. They do not deserve mercy. They get professional courtesy and nothing more. Clear?" "Clear, Corporal," the Marines answered together. The boarding craft attached to the Vrelic's hull with a magnetic clamp. Cutting torches began slicing through the alien metal. It took 6 minutes to burn through. The whole time, Nari expected the Relics to be waiting on the other side, ready to fight. But when the hull section fell away, there was nothing. Just an empty corridor, dark, silent, cold. The Marines moved in, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. The Vrelic ship had lost power. Emergency lights flickered occasionally, but most systems were dead. The air was thin and smelled like chemicals. Everything was designed for creatures bigger than humans. The corridors were tall. The doorways were wide. This ship was built for monsters. They found the first Vrelics warriors 3 corridors in, a group of 12, huddled together in what looked like a command center. They had weapons, but they were not pointing them at the Marines. They were just standing there, waiting. When they saw the humans, they made clicking sounds, fear sounds. Nari recognized fear in any language. On the ground, Nari ordered, her rifle aimed at the largest Vrelics. "Do not move. Do not fight, you lost. This is over." The Vrelics looked at each other. Then slowly, carefully, they set down their weapons and lay on the floor. They understood surrender. That was good. That made this easier. It took 4 hours to secure the ship and capture all 900 Vrelics warriors. They did not fight. They just gave up. Their empire trained them to conquer weak species, but nobody trained them how to lose. Nobody taught them what to do when they met something stronger than themselves. Dr. Minji came aboard once the ship was secure. She wanted to talk to them, wanted to understand them. She found a Vrelics officer in the holding area, separated from the others. He was large, covered in dark brown exoskeleton with 4 arms and compound eyes. He looked at her with something Minji recognized. "Shame." "You speak human language?" Minji asked, standing outside the energy barrier that kept the prisoner contained. The Vrelics clicked his mandibles. "Yes, I study languages. I'm communications officer. Was communications officer. Now I am prisoner. Why did you attack us?" Minji asked. The question she had been wanting to ask for days. "We tried to talk. We sent peaceful messages. We offered friendship. Why did you choose violence?" The Vrelics was quiet for a long time. Finally, he answered, "Because you are species 487. Because we have done this 486 times before. Because we are Vrelics. We conquer. We expand. We take. It is what we do. It is all we know. You have destroyed 486 other civilizations?" Minji felt sick. "Why? What could possibly justify that?" "Justify?" The Vrelics seemed confused by the word. "We do not justify. We simply do. Strong species survive. Weak species serve or die. This is law of galaxy. This is way of things. You humans, you talk about peace and friendship, but in end you are same. You have weapons that erase ships from existence. You kill without mercy. You are strong. You are predators like us." Minji shook her head. "No, we are not like you. We defend ourselves. We protect our people, but we do not go looking for civilizations to destroy. We do not murder children because we want their planet. There is a difference between defending and conquering. You are about to learn that difference." The Vrelics looked at her with his compound eyes. "What will you do to us? Will you execute us? Torture us? Turn us into slaves like we would have done to you?" "No," Minji said. "We will keep you prisoner until this is over. Then we will put you on trial. Let the galaxy decide what happens to Empire that has committed genocide 486 times. But I promise you this, humanity will not become monsters just because we met monsters. We will remain civilized, even if you do not deserve it. She left the prisoner there, clicking softly to himself. Whether it was laughter or sorrow, Minji could not tell. Captain Daiho was taken to the medical frigate where doctors worked on his injuries. Broken arm, second-degree burns, internal bruising, and exhaustion so deep he could barely stand. But he refused to sleep until he knew the colony was safe. The Vrelic's ground forces are surrendering, Lieutenant Hyun reported from his bedside. Sergeant Junho is accepting their surrender now. The bombardment has stopped. We won, Captain. We actually won. Daiho closed his eyes and let out a breath he felt like he had been holding for 3 days. Casualties? Hyun's face fell. Final count is 18,000 civilians dead, another 7,000 injured. Most of the capital city is destroyed. 3 of the farming regions are burning. The Taeguk lost 120 crew out of 200. The destroyer Incheon was lost with all hands. 317 personnel. But Captain, we saved 22,000 people. Because you bought them time. Because you fought when anyone else would have run. I need to see Administrator Bora, Daiho said, trying to sit up. You need to rest. The doctor interrupted firmly. Administrator Bora is fine. She is coordinating relief efforts. The colony will survive. Now you need to let yourself survive too. Daiho lay back down. He was so tired. So very tired. He had been in combat for 3 days straight. He had fought impossible odds. He had lost friends, lost crew, lost people he swore to protect, but they had won. Against everything, they had won. On the surface of New Sejong, Sergeant Junho watched Vrelic's ground troops lay down their weapons. There were hundreds of them. Insect warriors bred for conquest. Now they were defeated prisoners, their mandibles clicking in fear. They had been cutting through human defenses easily until the sky started raining fire, until their ship started dying. Then they lost all fight. They were soldiers, not fanatics. When their fleet was gone, they knew it was over. What do we do with them? One of Junho's Marines asked. We guard them until command decides, Junho answered, and we make sure none of them try anything stupid. But look at them. They are broken. They thought they were apex predators. Now they know the truth. There is always something higher on the food chain. Administrator Bora walked through the ruins of her capital city. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were torn apart. Fires still burned in some districts. But people were alive. Families were reuniting. Children who thought their parents were dead found them in the shelters. Parents who feared they lost their children held them again. The colony had paid a terrible price, but it survived. They survived. Captain Yunji toured the captured Vrelic ship personally. She wanted to see what kind of species could casually destroy civilizations. What she found made her cold inside. The ship had records. Detailed records. 486 species conquered, some enslaved, most simply eliminated. Entire planets sterilized because the Vrelics wanted their resources. Billions dead across centuries of expansion, and nobody had stopped them. Nobody had been strong enough. Until now, she found something else too. Star charts, the locations of every Vrelics-controlled world, the positions of their fleets, the coordinates of their homeworld, everything humanity would need to dismantle their empire. The Vrelics had kept perfect records of their conquests, never imagining someone would use those records against them. Copy everything, Yunji ordered her intelligence officer. Every file, every map, every piece of data. Send it to Earth. Admiral Soo-hyun needs to see this. Back on Earth, Admiral Soo-hyun stood in the war room at Mars Command, reviewing the battle reports. The 7th Fleet had performed perfectly. The railguns had exceeded expectations. The Vrelics had been destroyed. But this was not over. This was just beginning. Admiral, we have received the data from the captured ship, her intelligence officer reported. It is worse than we thought. The Vrelics Empire controls 214 star systems. They have enslaved 7 species and completely exterminated the others. Current estimates put their total fleet at over 3,000 warships. Soo-hyun studied the numbers. 3,000 ships. Even with railguns, humanity could not fight them all at once. But they did not need to. They needed something better than brute force. They needed strategy. What about the enslaved species? Soo-hyun asked. Do we have information on them? Yes, Admiral. 7 species across 41 worlds. They are forced to work in mines, factories, and farms. The Vrelics use them as slaves, nothing more. But if we could free them, if we could get them to rebel. 6 weeks passed after the Battle of New Sejong. 6 weeks of rebuilding, 6 weeks of planning, 6 weeks of humanity preparing to change the galaxy forever. Captain Daeho stood in the rebuilt Memorial Plaza in New Sejong's capital. His arm was healed now, though it still ached when it rained. Around him 40,000 colonists gathered in silence. Before them stood a wall of black stone, carved with 18,000 names. Every person who died when the Vrelics attacked. Every life cut short by an empire that saw humans as nothing more than obstacles. They came for our peace, Daeho read from the memorial inscription. They found our war. He touched one name on the wall. Lee Minho, his communications officer, 23 years old, dead in the first attack. One of so many. We will remember, always. The crowd stood in silence for 10 minutes. Then they went back to rebuilding. Because that is what humans do. They remember their dead. Then they keep living, keep building, keep moving forward. The Vrelics tried to break them. Instead, they just made them stronger. Lieutenant Commander Sunmi worked in a secure facility on Earth, analyzing everything they learned from the captured Vrelic ship. She had been at this for 6 weeks, barely sleeping, eating at her desk, living inside the data. Now she understood the Vrelics better than they understood themselves. Admiral Suyun, Sunmi said over secure video link, I have completed my analysis. The Vrelics Empire is powerful but fragile. Their entire society is built on fear and constant conquest. They keep expanding because if they stop, the enslaved species will rebel. They have no friends, no allies, only subjects who hate them. So if we break their military power, the empire collapses? Suyun asked. Not just collapses, Admiral. It shatters. I have identified 41 worlds with enslaved populations. If we can free even a few, if we can arm them and help them fight back, the Vrelics will have to defend everywhere. They cannot do that. They are conquerors, not defenders. Suyun leaned forward. What do you recommend? We send the message, Sunmi said. Not to the Vrelics leadership. To the slaves. We tell them humanity is coming. We tell them to prepare. We tell them they are not alone anymore. And then we give them something the Vrelics never gave anyone. Hope. In the Kuiper Belt, Chief Engineer Quan walked through Prometheus Deep's expanded facilities. Where there had been one experimental warship, now there were 12. And in the construction yards, 188 more were being built. Humanity had mobilized its entire industrial capacity for war. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource from Mercury to Neptune. This was the largest military buildup in human history. Will they be ready in time? Captain Yunji asked, walking beside him. She had been promoted to admiral after the Battle of New Sejong. Now she commanded the first liberation fleet, the force that would take the fight to the Vrelics Empire. In 3 months you will have 200 railgun-equipped warships, Quan promised, plus 500 conventional vessels for support and occupation. It is the most powerful fleet ever assembled. But Admiral, I need you to understand something. These weapons are planet killers. If you fire a railgun at a planet's surface, you will create an extinction event. The power cannot be controlled or reduced. You will have the ability to destroy worlds. I need to know humanity will use that power responsibly. Unji was quiet for a moment. I have thought about that every day since New Sejong. The truth is, I cannot promise we will never use that power, but I can promise we will never use it casually. Never for conquest. Never for cruelty. Only when there is no other choice. That is the best answer I can give you. Quan nodded slowly. Then I hope that is enough. Because once we release this into the galaxy, we cannot take it back. Other species will copy the technology. The age of railgun warfare begins with us. We set the standard. We show everyone how these weapons should be used. Or we show them how to become monsters. The choice is ours. Corporal Nari had been promoted to sergeant after the battle. Now she trained new Marines in boarding actions and urban combat. Her trainees asked her what the Vrelics were like. What to expect when they faced them. They are warriors, Nari told her class. Born and bred for combat, strong, fast, tough, but they are not invincible. They bleed, they break, they fear. And when they met weapons they could not understand, when they faced tactics they could not counter, they surrendered. Remember that. Fear is not weakness. Fear is intelligence recognizing danger. The Vrelics feared humanity. That fear kept them alive. Do not be ashamed of fear. Be ashamed of letting fear control you. Ambassador Jiwan spoke before the United Human Government, presenting the plan to liberate Vrelix-controlled space. Not everyone agreed with the decision to go to war. Some argued humanity should focus on defense, not offense. Others worried about the cost in blood and resources. The debate lasted for days. We are not the Vrelix, Jiwan argued. We do not conquer. We do not enslave. But can we truly call ourselves civilized if we know about genocide and do nothing? If we know about slavery and turn away? The Vrelix have destroyed 486 civilizations. How many more will they destroy if we do nothing? The government voted. The decision was close but clear. Humanity would go to war. Not for territory. Not for resources. For justice. For protection. For the principle that some things are worth fighting for. The Vrelix Empire received humanity's message 2 months after the Battle of New Sejong. It came on every frequency, in every language, broadcast so powerfully that even basic receivers could pick it up. The message included full combat footage of the battle. 44 Vrelix warships being systematically destroyed. The railgun strikes. The vaporized ships. The desperate attempts to flee. All of it recorded in perfect clarity. And then came the words. Spoken by Captain Daeho in a voice that carried 3 days of fighting and 18,000 deaths. To the Vrelix Empire and all who would threaten humanity. You attacked our civilians. You murdered our children. You believed us weak. This is what happens when you wake a sleeping predator. We have identified the locations of all 486 species in your records. We will liberate them. We will dismantle your empire, and if you resist, we will demonstrate why Earth's symbol is an apex predator. The eagle. You have one opportunity to surrender unconditionally. Release all enslaved species. Disarm your military. Face justice for your crimes. If you refuse, we will show you what true apex predators do to their prey. You have 30 days to respond. Humanity has spoken. The message played across Vrelix space. Their leadership tried to suppress it. Tried to block it. But it was everywhere. And worse, the enslaved species heard it too. 7 civilizations across 41 worlds heard humanity promise liberation. Heard someone finally say the Vrelix were not invincible. Heard hope for the first time in generations. The rebellion started on the mining world of Kareth. Enslaved workers rose up against their Vrelix overseers. They had no weapons. No training. Just rage and hope and the knowledge that someone out there was coming to help them. The Vrelix garrison crushed the rebellion brutally, but it did not matter. The damage was done. If it could happen on Kareth, it could happen anywhere. Then Talon rebelled. Then Voss, then Cremora. 40 worlds erupted in violence as enslaved species fought back against their masters. The Vrelix military spread thin, trying to contain the chaos, trying to maintain control. But they were conquerors, not peacekeepers. They only knew how to destroy resistance, not prevent it. 3 months after the message, Admiral Yunji stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Horizon's Hammer. Around her, 200 railgun-equipped warships waited in perfect formation. Behind them, 500 support vessels carried marines, supplies, and relief workers. The first liberation fleet was ready. All ships, this is Admiral Yunji, she transmitted. Today we do something no species has done in Vrelix history. We take the fight to them. We show them what happens when predators meet protectors. We liberate slaves. We stop genocide. We prove that humanity stands for something more than survival. For justice, for freedom, for the principle that all sentient beings have the right to live without fear. The Vrelix Empire ends today. Liberation fleet jumped to hyperspace on my mark. Mark. 700 human warships disappeared from Earth space and jumped toward Vrelix territory. The war had begun. Not a war of conquest, a war of liberation. Lieutenant Hyun, now captain of his own destroyer, the Taeguk II, jumped with the fleet. He thought about his old captain Daeho, recovering on New Sejong. Thought about everyone who died in those first attacks. Thought about what they were about to do. He opened his ship communication to his crew. "Everyone scared?" he asked. "Yes, sir," came the honest responses. "Good," Hyun said. "Fear keeps you sharp. But remember why we are here. We are not invaders. We are liberators. Every ship we destroy is one less ship bombing civilians. Every world we free is one less world living in slavery. The Vrelix think they are strong because they conquered 486 species. We are going to show them the difference between strength and cruelty, between power and justice. Let them fear us. Let them remember. Let the galaxy know, if you attack humanity, If you kill our people, if you threaten the innocent, then you meet the Railgun, and the Railgun does not miss.